What's up, guys? Welcome back to the MMA meeting. Let's Talk TheWeasle podcast, where we talk all things MMA, and hope you guys are having a fantastic day. That last fight night card delivered. Definitely proved to be better than some of the previous cards we see recently. Talked about Topuria's performance against Josh Emmett, and it's still amazing to go back and watch. His boxing skill was at an absolute high level. Great wrestling in the end of the round, and also controlling Emmett pretty well. A complete one-sided outclassing from a 26-year-old. And it's incredible to think about because the guy is not even close to his prime yet. He doesn't have that many fights. And fight age is young, and actual age is young. He still has 4 or 5 years before he hits his prime. That's the scariest thing about Ilia Topuria. It's not how good he is now, it's how good he's going to be in the next few years. And it's still incredible how so many people thought that Paddy Pimblett would have beaten this guy. Boggles my mind, but everybody's gonna have their favorites. Man, where's Paddy been? Topuria's had 2 fights since Paddy last fought? I think he was injured or something, but that guy's not that young. He's 28, 29? Young in the game, but not young enough to sit around like this. What Topuria did to Josh Emmett, he would have done way worse to Paddy. And people would say, but what about Paddy's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Can he catch him there? Possibly, but Topuria will probably out-grapple him as well. There is really nowhere where Paddy Pimblett, unless he hits him with that low puncher's chance, or Topuria just slips on a banana peel and exposes his neck. I don't see how skillfully Paddy Pimblett beats Ilia Topuria at all, now or in the future. In fact, I would say this Ilia Topuria that we see right now would be any version of Paddy Pimblett moving from now into any time in the future. I don't think Paddy will ever get as good as Topuria is right now, especially not as good as Topuria is gonna be in a few years. Maycee Barber TKOing Amanda Ribas. She was proven to be the better fighter throughout the fight. I was still kind of shocked that Ribas was the favorite going into it. As you saw in my prediction video, I did favor Maycee Barber. I thought she was going to be too powerful and too physical for Ribas, and that proved to be the case. But she did also pick her shots pretty well. The head kick into the big overhand, she does not punch for how she looks. She could hurt anybody in the world with those kind of punches. And Ribas definitely would not take those well. That was a big win for Maycee Barber, putting together a good win streak here. And of course, you're going to see the hip tosses from Amanda Ribas. And they almost didn't work. She almost got her back taken, but it seemed like she was onto it actually. She saw that Maycee Barber went in for one hook, and then Ribas turned into it, getting into Maycee Barber's guard. So off of that win, I think Maycee Barber should fight maybe Caitlin. Wait, where's Caitlin Chukagian? Oh wait, she changed her name. I would like to see her fight her, or maybe Lauren Murphy. Austin Lane, Justin Tafa, nothing really to say here. Ended it in 29 seconds because of an eye poke. It was a bad eye poke. Austin Lane, I think, was throwing a right hand and then tried to get away from Tafa because he has that reach advantage. He tried to get away from him by pushing at his face, but his fingers went into the eye. We'll love to see that get put together in the future. And it's crazy that Austin Lane is a former NFL player. He played for the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Kansas City Chiefs, Detroit Lions, and Chicago Bears. These football players are very athletic. They can get into the top organizations, but it's pretty difficult for them to stay there and be relevant for a long time. We'll see what Austin Lane can do, but we saw Matt Mitrione. He was in there for a while, but never really put together a great win streak compared to guys like Ngannou or Ciryl Gane or something like that. David Onama with the uppercut. He was losing too. He was losing the fight. They got into the clinch and he caught him with a good elbow and then the combination into the uppercut. That was one of those Street Fighter 6 uppercuts or whatever. Catching Santos right under the chin perfectly. Full fist under the chin. That guy has insane power, and it's crazy because Santos looks so good. That's what made that performance even more impressive. Santos looked great. He was winning the fight. David Onama just has the power at any time to catch you and knock you out. He's probably somewhere outside the top 15. Brendan Allen putting it on Bruno Silva and submitting him in the first round. Not only out-grappled him, but even outstruck him, which was crazy. He caught him, I think it was with the overhand, and then stringed that with the right straight across his body, kind of how Conor McGregor did when he fought Chad Mendes. That one left hand that Conor just threw across his body, full leverage and reach into Chad Mendes' jaw. That's what Allen kind of did against Bruno Silva. You could generate a lot of power for some reason with that kind of form. Even though in theory, when you think about it, you would think you can't generate as much power. It's actually a punch you're not usually taught to throw, but the reason why you're able to generate so much more power is because the pivot, and you could generate even more leverage. There's a lot of momentum being built there. But Bruno Silva did have some of his moments when he had Brendan Allen up against the fence. But when I saw that Allen was able to push back Silva, I knew Silva was going to be in some trouble. I just didn't think he would hurt him and drop him. I thought he would shoot a takedown and use the fence to get him down. So that was a magnificent win for Brendan Allen. He definitely needs a big step up in competition. He's a great new contender, and as he said, the youngest guy in actual age, 27 years old, in the top 15. So he's number 13. I see him being above maybe Imavov with that performance, possibly even Kelvin Gastelum. I think Kelvin's also moving down to 170. So yeah, I would put Brendan Allen as the number 11, and I would love to see him fight Derek Brunson. He was calling for the loser of Whitaker and Dricus. I would love to see that as well. And as for Bruno Silva, this guy's chin has never been the same since he fought Alex Pereira. In the Alex fight and before it, the guy had an insane chin. That was like the big thing about him. Great chin, amazing power. But for the first time, he got hurt in that Pereira fight. He got hit by that backstep left hook, and he was wobbly. It was the first time we saw Silva like that. And ever since that punch and some of the other damage that he took against Pereira, the guy was never the same again. Gerald Meerschaert put him down. Brendan Allen put him down. It's like guys who weren't known to have that one-punch knockout power like that are putting Bruno Silva down with 1 or 2 shots, which is crazy because Pereira could even do that. It just shows you fighters don't need to take the same kind of damage in order for themselves to deteriorate. For Bruno Silva, it took much less damage for his chin to crack. And then you look at guys like Max Holloway and his chin still hasn't cracked. And he's taken way more damage than Bruno Silva has. It's very weird the way the body structure is of why certain fighters could take certain shots and certain fighters can only take so much. Neil Magny winning against Philip Rowe, kind of went how I thought it was going to go. Rennie Brown looked pretty good against Wellington Turman. Rebecki with a great performance. He's looking really good right now. It's not going to be too long before he fights a top 15 fighter. Tabitha Ritchie always looking good. Joshua Van with a big upset. It was a questionable decision, I'm not going to lie. But hey, anybody who went with an underdog win probably won a lot. The Trevor Peek and Mariscal fight was insane, man. I did not think Mariscal would be able to trade with Trevor Peek like that. But Trevor Peek is putting on these magnificent brawls. It seems like this is the kind of guy he's going to be. He's going to be that fun fighter that you just know is going to deliver on your entertainment. If you want entertaining fights and Trevor Peek's on the card, he's going to be the guy. Good fight night card overall. In my opinion, it was on paper supposed to be the best card of June. And it delivered to be. It was the best card. And looking at the next card, you do have Sean Strickland versus Abes Magomedov. And even though Sean Strickland is a big favorite going into it, a lot of people actually don't know too much about Magomedov. He's a very good fighter. He had that fast knockout win in the UFC. I think it was like 19 seconds where he hit the guy with the front kick, marched him down, and just unloaded on the guy. The guy has great power in the way that he throws his strikes. There's a lot of snap and a great amount of speed. If he catches Sean Strickland with some of those shots, Strickland could be in some trouble. But the thing is, he needs to find those shots through the defense of Strickland, which can be pretty tough, and Strickland does not gas out. So Magomedov, if he doesn't have the cardio, he needs to get this done early. But do you know what's funny? If Magomedov beats Strickland, and you look at Paulo Costa fighting Ikram Aliskerov, let's say Aliskerov also beats Costa, which is a very real thing. That can absolutely happen. I think these would be the biggest ranking jumps in modern UFC history. We're going from guys who only have one fight in the UFC to beating top 5 Paulo Costa or top 6 Sean Strickland. They would have to enter absolutely in the top 10 somewhere. And honestly, it's something the division needs. We need guys that could finish their opponents like that. These two guys are finishers. Magomedov and Aliskerov are great finishers. And it would mix up the rankings a bit and bring in new faces. Because the middleweight division desperately needs new faces. Desperately needs new talent in the top 5. Aliskerov definitely has the potential. He has the talent to be a top 5 fighter. We're going to see with Magomedov. I need to see more of him. But if he beats Strickland, then that would prove that he is. I'm actually looking forward to see if these two guys can beat those ranked fighters. Because that would be awesome to bring new challenges for the champion and for other top 5 guys. Because they're all fighting each other right now. Especially Paulo Costa. If there's one guy there that needs to get his ranking changed, it's Paulo Costa. It's not because, he's not a good fighter. No, he is a very good fighter. It's just because he doesn't fight. He's holding that number 5 spot hostage. And he's only been fighting once a year since 2018. He still has not fought in 2023. And Ikram Aliskerov is about to have his second fight this year. He's on track to have 3 to 4 fights this year. I would much rather see someone like Ikram in the top 5 than someone like Costa. Watch when Costa just doesn't take the fight. We know the billionaires are Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk are actually looking to compete up against each other, and Dana is saying that he's willing to put it together. And crazy enough, it could actually break Conor McGregor's numbers. And the fact that it possibly could, because Musk and Zuck are extremely famous, right? Everybody knows who these two are, especially Elon Musk. And they're some of the richest people in the whole world. In fact, Elon Musk is the richest person in the whole world right now. Dana is saying that this could absolutely break all the numbers. And it's crazy to think about that because celebrities can do that, right? You don't even need high-level fighters in order to draw that many people to watch the fight. You just need big personalities like these two, and everybody is going to watch. Absolutely everybody would watch, and they would price the fight at $100. Of course, they would have to stack it as well. I don't know if they would have that as a main event or something like that. I mean, it would be insane to have Musk and Zuckerberg as a main event of an entire card. Co-main event would be the perfect spot for that, and then have an actual legitimate fight to conclude the night, and it would have to be someone like Adesanya main eventing or Jon Jones or something. I'm all up for it. People are asking though, like, who would win, Zuck or Musk? Of course, Mark Zuckerberg would win right now. If they were to compete right now against each other without having like years of training and preparation, Mark Zuckerberg is younger and he's actually been rolling in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while now. He's competing in tournaments. I think Elon Musk is bigger though, but I could be wrong on that. Let me see here. Mark Zuckerberg, 39 years old, net worth is 101 billion. He is 5'7". Wow, he's way shorter than I thought he was. And his weight is around 155 pounds. Wait, he's really small. That can change a lot here. Elon Musk is 6'1", 180. I don't think he's 180. I think he's more than that. It says he's 180 pounds, but he definitely looks like he added a few pounds onto him. So I don't know now. I don't know what the preparation will look like. I don't know how long the preparation is going to be, because if it's like a year or 2 years, I'd actually probably favor Elon Musk. Because even though Zuckerberg's been rolling, he's not like a high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy at all. And when punches get introduced, skill from amateurs can absolutely go out the window. And Elon Musk is definitely going to hit harder than Zuckerberg. Elon Musk is 51 years old though. This is actually interesting now. This is actually really interesting. Net worth is 236 billion. I don't know about the whole celebrity thing in this sport though. In boxing, it's always been a thing. So in boxing, it's kind of normal at this point. It's always been a thing. But for MMA, it's not usually something like that. We had CM Punk. They didn't put him as a main event or something crazy like that, you know. I can see where they want to put Zuck versus Musk as a main event. And man, that would hurt the legitimacy for a lot of hardcore fans. For myself, I don't mind. I'll watch it. If I don't want to watch it, I just wouldn't. You know, if I don't like the fight, I just wouldn't. But I actually am somewhat interested in the spectacle. I mean, Pride used to do this kind of stuff all the time. So a spectacle here or there doesn't hurt, in my opinion. But if I were to pick somebody, I would actually go with Mark Zuckerberg. And man, that would break all the numbers, man. That would break all of the records. What do you guys think the pay-per-view number will look like? I think it can reach 2 million, possibly even close to 3. Who doesn't want to see billionaires going at it? But not only is this matchup being talked about, but there's other fights that are getting put together. Rose Namajunas is finally back, and she's going up a weight class. This was surprising. Rose is not going to be at strawweight. She's going up to flyweight to fight Menon Furat, who's the number 2 contender. So it looks like if Rose beats Menon, she's going to get a title shot after Shevchenko fights Grasso for the second time, most likely. But it's interesting to me because Rose is not a big fighter for strawweight. She's a good size strawweight, right? She weighs around like 130. That's what most of the strawweights are walking around. And she's, one fight away from a title shot at strawweight as well. She has 2 wins against the champion. Very interesting to see her going up to flyweight, but I don't mind it. I mean, if a fighter doesn't want to cut as much weight, who's to knock that fighter for it? I mean, that's how it should be. Every single fighter should be going up to their natural weight class. And 125 is Rose's natural weight class where she doesn't have to cut too much. So she's actually going to be fresh. The weight cut's not going to be bad at all. But the only thing is, will she be willing to fight her friend? Her and Valentina Shevchenko have trained for a long time. And I guess with this move up, she is willing to go and fight Valentina. And maybe she's just so enticed by the 2-division champion thing. If she does it, I mean, she's going down at least top 5 female fighters of all time. If she gets that flyweight belt, she might even be top 3. We got Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, and then Joanna. You do have Chris Cyborg there as well. Becoming a double champ with the fighters that she beat and being a 2-time strawweight champion with a title defense there. I mean, I wouldn't argue too much against her being above Joanna or Cyborg. But I don't know if I could put her above Ronda or Nunes. Another fight is Anthony Smith is going to be fighting Ryan Spann again. So it's a rematch off of a first-round finish that Smith got on Spann before. This was actually Anthony Smith's last win. I'm surprised they're putting this together again. Both guys are finishers. Ryan Spann's going to go right after Anthony Smith, who seems to be slowing down these days. He's finally hitting that age where he's just not the same guy anymore. He's still very tough. He still is going to hang in there no matter how much damage is getting inflicted on him. But Ryan Spann is different kind of power. The guy is very reckless, and that's the biggest thing that goes against him. He's extremely talented, very athletic, but he takes so many risks, it gets him caught in fights. So I can see Smith pulling out the veteran's hat and winning because of his experience of weathering the storm and then finding his shots later. But I can absolutely see where Ryan Spann is just too much in the first round for Smith to survive. And that fight's going to be on the Singapore card. Okay, that's where Max Holloway is fighting Korean Zombie. Not the greatest matchup there. I mean, how could they be doing Korean Zombie like that? He's over the hill, too old for fighting, and he's looking to retire. This is his retirement fight, so he's going to do all he can against another featherweight veteran, one of the greatest featherweights of all time. The way the Korean Zombie usually wins fights is he catches you, right? He finds that big shot on you and knocks you out. But the thing is, nobody can knock out Max Holloway. If you're banking on knocking out Max, you're going to lose the fight. That's just how it's going to go down. You got to beat this guy on points or submit him. There's no way you're knocking this guy out. I see Max destroying him. As a Korean Zombie fan, that fight is really going to hurt. I don't think we've ever seen Korean Zombie take a beating like he's going to get one from Holloway. What about Francis Ngannou and Jon Jones? So a lot of people made noise about this whole stare down thing and them talking to each other. They didn't really say anything that was unexpected or anything like that. Both guys are in different organizations. This fight is most likely not going to happen. So I actually don't even see the reason for them to do this whole thing of them staring down and all this stuff. Francis left the UFC. He had the chance to fight Jones. He went to PFL instead. It was an amazing deal that he was able to pull off, but I just don't see how they're going to have Jones fight Ngannou. Jones is getting old at this point, right? He's been around for a very, very long time. He probably has a few fights left in him. He talked about fighting Stipe, and maybe he's going to fight after that. He's not even 100% sure that he will. And it looked like Jones was drunk too, so Ngannou has to be careful. He might get headbutt like that car that got in his way. And talking about Jon Jones, what about Tyson Fury now? Tyson Fury made the biggest backtrack I have ever seen. This is the guy that said that if him and Jones were locked in a room, that he would be the one that would walk out. And then Joe Rogan started talking about, how Jones would beat him in an MMA fight or something like that. And then Jones responded, and Tyson had a completely different demeanor about the whole thing. He wasn't so confident anymore, talking with all that swagger anymore. Once Jon Jones responded to Tyson Fury, Fury was trying to be a lot more respectful about it. Because not only does he know, everybody knows. If Jon Jones and Tyson Fury would ever fight, Jones would beat him. Yeah, sure, in boxing, Tyson Fury would absolutely destroy Jon Jones, but in almost anything else, Jones is wiping the floor with Fury. And now Tyson Fury is going after Joe Rogan for saying that he started this whole ridiculous debate. But didn't Tyson Fury make his own statement for it? Didn't he say that he would beat Jon Jones in a fight, and now he's going after Rogan saying that it's a ridiculous debate, but he took part of it? In fact, nobody really cared about it until he said something. But now that Jones is saying something back to him, now he doesn't want anything to do with it anymore. That's really funny. Tyson Fury is my favorite boxer. He's the guy that keeps me watching boxing. But if we're going to be honest, he backtracked big time. Yeah, and Tyson was saying yeah, I said I would beat him in a room. I never said anything about fighting him in a cage. There would be almost nothing different. In fact, fighting Jones in a cage would be much easier for himself. Because now he can't elbow you in the back of the head when he gets you down on all fours. Now he can't kick the groin. Now he can't eye poke. I mean, has he never watched a Jon Jones fight? It's not the spinning back elbow. It's not the Kimura. It's not the high kick. It's not the guillotine. Jon Jones' best technique is the eye poke. And a fight in a room is going to allow him to do that to you. Can you imagine all the finger jabs that he will throw at Fury's face? I never understood this argument where people are saying, in an MMA cage, it's different, when it's actually the other way around. If you're fighting an MMA fighter in the cage, you actually have a better chance of beating them than if there were no rules. Look at all the restrictions that MMA puts on these fighters, like the whole ground and knee thing that's been a big talk of debate in the last month or so, or all the eye pokes, or when you get someone's back and you could just throw 12 to 6 elbows or just smash them with your elbows instead of trying to just go for the rear naked choke. And another thing that's looking like it's getting backtracked, well, there's no confirmation to this. It's all up in the air. The whole thing about Conor and USADA. I think it was MMA Uncensored that reported this. This is where all of this is coming from. They said on Twitter that Conor did not give a sample yet. He has not been tested and the deadline is past now, which means that he will not be able to fight for this whole year. I have to look at the rules. I don't know if this is 100% correct. And even if it is, we're talking about Conor McGregor who could find his way around it. But let's say he doesn't fight this year. What does Michael Chandler do? Does he wait it out for Conor and get that payday? Or does he just fight somebody else? Because Arman Tsarukyan's been calling him out. Ever since Arman beat Joaquin Silva, the guy he wants to fight is Chandler. And that's a very difficult fight for Arman's style. Because you got Michael Chandler who could defend takedowns very well. He's very fast in the first round too. One punch knockout power, all that stuff, but he is a bit wild. So there are openings for Arman Tsarukyan to catch him with a head kick, some big overhand, or even get a takedown to try to submit him in the second and third rounds. First round's way too difficult, right? The guy's way too strong in the first. You gotta get him in the second or the third. It's a fight that Arman can win if he fights smart, but it's also very dangerous for himself. So if I was in Arman's corner, I would definitely be targeting Chandler at this point. because all these rumors about Conor and not fighting this year, targeting Michael Chandler seems to be the best move because not only is he higher up in the rankings, but Chandler's been getting a lot more publicity being matched up with Conor, right? This is the fight that all the casual fans are waiting for. They're waiting for Chandler versus Conor. So for the past few months, Chandler's name has been tied with Conor's, and the Ultimate Fighter has been going on. So if Arman becomes the guy that fights Chandler and he beats Chandler, people are going to become a lot more familiar with Arman Tsarukyan. So it's actually a good opponent to look out for at this time. But if I was in Michael Chandler's corner, I would wait out for the Conor fight. You're never going to get a payday like that anywhere else. It's too big of an opportunity to just pass up. Do you guys also hear about Islam Makhachev? He's like kind of depressed. He's kind of down that Dariush lost to Oliveira because he thought that Dariush was going to be the next fresh matchup, but seeing Oliveira destroy him in one round, he doesn't seem too excited about fighting Oliveira again. The way he's talking about Oliveira, it seems like he just thinks it's too much of an easy fight. He has to be careful, man, because if that's his next opponent, he cannot underestimate him. You can't just go out there and think, oh, this guy's just going to be easy. Oliveira right now is the second best lightweight in the world. You cannot underestimate a guy on that caliber, no matter even if you beat him or not, because he's going to be 100% focused on defeating you. And if you're not 100% focused on defeating this guy, and you're looking at other matchups and stuff like that, that mental difference can cause Makhachev a big loss. And it's the fight that has to happen. It's the fight everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to see Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2. It's the biggest fight in the lightweight division. It's a fight that could possibly even sell close to 700,000 buys, in my opinion, especially now that Islam has a title defense. He is a champion. Everybody knows Oliveira's name. He's coming off an impressive win over Beneil Dariush, and he was the underdog going into it, which shows that a lot of people thought that he was going to lose against Dariush. So we got two guys at the top of the lightweight division and nobody's on their level right now, especially with Arman Tsarukyan's performance against Joaquim Silva. People seem to think now that Arman's not on their level anymore. He needs more time to grow. But with Oliveira and Islam, they are absolutely the top dogs of the lightweight division. And there's no other fight that's going to be better than these two competing. And I was talking with a friend of mine about the whole thing about Volkanovski. If Volk beats Yair, which is something that should happen, does he get another crack at the 155 champ? I was thinking about this because, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, he barely lost to Islam. It was very close. Nobody thought it was going to be that close. Everyone thought that Islam would be too big and too strong and too good of a grappler for Volk to deal with. And it was a massive fight. I mean, everybody loved it. So if he goes out there and beats Yair, and he has to do it convincingly, is there another contender ready for him? We talk about Ilia Topuria, right? But Ilia Topuria is so young. He's both young in fight age and actual age. He doesn't have a lot of experience, and he's, 26 years old. Do you throw him at Volkanovski right now? Or do you have him fight like an Ortega before that, or a Holloway before that? Do you have him fight someone else before throwing him right at the champ at such a young age? I go back and forth on that because one part of me loves Ilia Topuria versus Alexander Volkanovski. Like, I want to see that matchup. Volk is going to be in another firefight that he hasn't been in a long time. Since he went up against Chad Mendes, he hasn't had a fight like that in a long time. And Topuria makes you fight him. He goes right after you. He tries to hit you with power punches right at the beginning of the fight. He's going to be going right after Volk, and Volk has to respond. He might be in another fight that's wild like the one he had with Chad Mendes. And there's no way a fight like that goes all 5 rounds. Either Volk gets knocked out or Volk finishes Ilia Topuria. Topuria definitely hits harder than Volk. He's definitely better with his submissions, so he has more finishing ability than Volk does, but Volk might be more well-rounded. I mean, he has much better kicks, he has good boxing, he has a fantastic jab. Ilia will eat a lot of leg kicks from Volk because the guy's so heavy on his front foot. The leg kicks are right there for the opening, and if Volk can leg kick you, he's going to be setting up a lot of combinations off on you. He's fighting at his best when he can kick you to the legs and get away with it. That's a Volk that's very hard to deal with. But the thing is, does he get his leg caught? Kind of how Brian Ortega got the fight to the ground, where he caught the kick and hit him with a left, put him to the ground and went straight for the guillotine, because Topuria on the ground is nasty. He's not exactly like Ortega, who would jump for a submission immediately, who would jump for a submission right when he sees it. He's going to slowly get to a dominant position before he does that. And he's going to land big ground and pound. Ortega usually lacks that top control that a lot of good wrestlers have. He would give up the position completely to try to tie you up. Topuria is different. Topuria has actually good wrestling. If he can get on top of you, he's not going to let you get up, right? He's going to go for a submission once he gets a clear opening where he can keep you on the ground at the same time. Arm triangles, getting your back for the rear naked choke. So on the ground, we know that Topuria is dangerous for Volk. Doesn't mean he would absolutely beat him on the ground, because Volk can outlast him and probably get him tired in like the 3rd, 4th, or 5th rounds and then finish him with ground and pound. He's going to eat a lot of jabs to the face, take a lot of leg kicks, and when he gets into those exchanges, He's going to eat some big shots as well. Who do I like winning in those exchanges? I probably like Topuria a little bit more than Volk. Volk did get hurt against Chad Mendes when they got into a trade and got caught on the inside when he was trying to engage on Max Holloway, right? He got hit by that uppercut. And actually, no, when he fought Islam Makhachev as well, Islam slightly dropped him and even rocked him with a pull counter. Volk seems to not be doing his best work in exchanges. He seems to be doing his best work in open space. So if Topuria can crowd him and get him into these slugfests, Topuria actually has a chance. He makes it exciting. Even if Volk beats him, which I do favor in the fight, no way is that fight being boring. That is probably the most exciting fight for Volkanovski. So that's one part of me that actually likes it. The part of me that wants to wait it out is just I want the final product of Ilia Topuria to fight Volk. But would that ever happen given how different they are in actual age? Volk is what, 34, 35? Topuria is 26. When Topuria hits his prime, Volk is probably retired, which is actually a bummer when you think about it. Topuria will be in his prime when Volk retires. You know what? If that's the case, I want to see Topuria versus Volk. I'd rather see the matchup regardless. So yeah, I would love to see Topuria fight Volk. And with that, let's go right to the questions. We are going to start with Jon Jordan. Fighters like Jones, Silva, Nunes, GSP, etc. were in the GOAT conversation while still fighting. Is there any fighter in the UFC who you see as a legit future candidate for GOAT status? Also, unless you're going to do a specific video, what are your thoughts on Spence versus Crawford? Yeah, so while all those 4 fighters were active, people looked at him as in the conversation as being the greatest fighter of all time. Do I see any fighter right now that can be the greatest fighter of all time? I don't see any of them. The only ones you could really point to are Adesanya and Volk. Actually, Demetrius. Are we just... Oh, wait, you said UFC fighters. What about Oliveira? No, I don't see Oliveira being the GOAT. I mean, if Oliveira does something special like beats Islam and then beats, I don't know, Dustin again or Armin and Chandler, I don't know, someone like that again, and just goes on a streak, then yeah. But right now, no. I don't see any fighter currently in the UFC that claims the GOAT status over like GSP or Jones or something. And my thoughts on the Spence and Crawford fight, I believe it when I see it. These boxing fights, man, they happen like 5 years too late. These two guys have been the champion of boxing of their weight class together for like the last 4 years, and they never fought each other. So I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, there's what, 4 or 5 belts in each weight class, and these two guys have held all those belts for like the last how long, and they never fought? Yeah, I don't know about it. I'll love to see it though. I mean, it is one of the best boxing fights that can happen right now. But what I like to see more is I like to see Crawford enter MMA, because that guy's wrestling actually looks pretty good, man. Then with the Samwise Gamgee. Hey Weasel, now with 289 in the past, please tell us what you think about the interesting tweet from Islam, probably Ali, yeah, most likely Ali, to Charles about there's levels to this game. With that on the table, considering common rivals Beneil, Gamrot, Armin, Islam, and Charles, how do you see them against each other with their current level for the respective rematches? Thanks for the consistency with your content lately. It's so entertaining to have high quality analysis around from your assertive point of view. Keep it up, bro. Greetings from Brandon Moreno's home state, Baja Mex. Oh, thank you so much, man. Yeah, I try my best. An actually really interesting question. So, firstly, Islam's tweet about Oliveira saying that there's levels to this game. Yeah, I can agree because he did beat Islam in the second round. But he cannot overlook him. He can't think that Charles is just nothing compared to me. He can't think like that. But most likely it is Ali saying it. Now, when you say, how do you compare them at their current level for the respective rematches, are you also talking about Beneil, Gamrot, Armin? Because they all didn't fight each other. But let me just go through that because it is more interesting. So like Beneil versus Gamrot, are you saying? In a respective rematch between them two? I think Gamrot does a lot better. I think he expected a different kind of Beneil Dariush. Actually, we all did. We didn't expect Beneil to fight as well as he did against Gamrot. So I still think it would be a competitive fight, but I don't know if he beats Beneil. I think Beneil still pulls it through. Now, Armin versus Gamrot. I think Armin beats Gamrot in a rematch. That first fight was already very, very close. The thing that Armin did that made him lose was just he went too hard early. He spent the whole gas tank right away throwing big overhands, huge kicks, a lot of effort on his takedowns. He made the fight way too difficult for himself. So I think he would pull off the win against Gamrot in a rematch. Now, Armin versus Islam, I have to go with Islam right now, but I do think that Armin in the future could surpass Islam. I think Islam's striking has just hit another level since they fought each other, and Islam didn't really know who Armin was, right? Armin knew who Islam was, but Islam didn't know who Armin was. So he was just wrestling, right? He just went to the thing he did best instead of trying to risk the striking against an unknown fighter. For all he knew, Armin was probably an amazing striker. He just went off with what he did best, went straight to his instincts, and it was competitive because he went up against a guy who unknowingly had really good wrestling. So with more knowledge on who Armin is, knowing the holes that he has on the feet, I think Islam would beat Armin overall right now counter him with the left hand, throw him some good high kicks, and still out-grapple him ever so slightly. I think the grappling sequences will always be very close between them two. Now, Beneil versus Charles in a rematch, Charles beats him again. I don't see any version of Beneil Dariush beating Charles Oliveira. And Islam Makhachev versus Charles rematch, man, that is a close fight. I would slightly go with Islam. I think Charles still gets clipped here and there from Islam, but I think Islam also gets clipped by Charles, so it's going to be back and forth. I see the fight actually going into the championship rounds, as the grappling sequences are going to be so even between them two. But I think eventually Islam does catch Charles toward like the 4th or 5th rounds that finishes him again. And then with the Nick Beatty, Sergio Pettis just beat Pitbull. And I just realized he's only 29 years old. He actually has a lot of good wins and has kind of flown under the radar. If he came back to the UFC, how would he do against the top 5 of both 125 and 135? Yeah, Sergio Pettis, in my opinion, has surpassed his brother Anthony. A lot of people look at Anthony Pettis as like one of the best lightweights of all time, but I think Sergio Pettis, as an overall fighter, is greater than Anthony. But you have to go and say Sergio Pettis and Anthony Pettis right now might be the greatest fighting brothers in MMA history. Both of them have become a champion in a major organization. Anthony Pettis was the WEC champ and the UFC champ. Sergio Pettis was the Bellator champ and fought many great contenders throughout his entire career. He beat better guys overall than Anthony beat. And he went up to 135 to get that belt. So he did a lot of good things at 125, like beating the current flyweight champion Brennan Moreno. Yeah, he beat Brennan Moreno. And he also beat Joseph Benavidez. He went up to bantamweight in Bellator and knocked out Kyoji Horiguchi in a fight that he was losing and beat Patricio Pitbull, who has a knockout win over Michael Chandler. Sergio Pettis is actually an amazing fighter, very underrated. I always had a feeling there was something special about him. He's only 29 as well. I mean, he has a lot of fights. There is some wear and tear on him, but he definitely has several years left of his career to do some amazing things. And hopefully he does come back and fight Moreno or whoever the bantamweight champion is going to be at the time. That would be really exciting. So how would Pettis do in the flyweight division, top 5? I think he loses to Kai Kara France. I think he beats Brennan Royval. I think he beats Amir Albazi. I think he beats Pantoja, loses to Figueiredo, and loses to Moreno, but it's a very close fight because the styles mix up pretty well there. And as for bantamweight, I mean, this is going to be tough for him. Petr Yan, I think he loses because Pettis is not a fast-paced fighter, which means that Yan will most likely destroy him. I definitely have to go with Corey. He's also way too big. Definitely have to go with Cejudo again, beating him for the second time. Sean O'Malley beats him. There's not much Pettis could do to this guy. He could probably hit him with some good leg and body kicks, but I don't see him taking him to the ground, and O'Malley would snipe him from a distance. Merab is too much, and Aljamain's too much. Then we go to the public questions, and we start with Daniel Kahn. Now that it seems like we're going to get Islam and Charles rematch next, do you see that fight playing out any differently, and what do you think it means for the lightweight GOAT status of both fighters? Also, how do you think a fantasy Prime Khabib versus Prime Colby and Usman would have gone? Will you be doing a face reveal face cam content anytime soon? We'll love to see that. Much love. To answer that last question, honestly, it just depends what you guys want. Because I did see a lot of you guys say that you guys don't want it, and then some of you are saying that you do want it. So I don't know which one to go with, you know? Maybe face reveal stuff on Patreon, or if I do like live podcasts and just have them live, maybe that's what I do. I'm thinking about it, but I just don't know exactly which direction I want to go with it. And then as for the rematch with Charles and Islam, yes, I do see it playing kind of differently in that it's going to be much more competitive. I think Oliveira is going to show up much better than he did last time. I think Islam is going to show up correct as well. I'm expecting Oliveira to be much more respectful of Islam's striking and actually not go berserk trying to knock him out right away. Probably fight him more how he fought Michael Chandler or Tony Ferguson. Don't get too crazy with the power. Don't get too crazy to try and knock out your opponent. Gauge the distance a lot more, or how he fought Kevin Lee, looking for long range punches, lead hand traps, and all that stuff. I see the grappling being even again, and I just think the first guy that hurts the other is where the fight is going to end. Either Oliveira hurts Islam, or Islam hurts Oliveira. That's the moment either guy is going to win the fight. Now, with greatest of all time status for both fighters, if Oliveira beats Islam and finishes him, I think he's at least one win away from becoming the greatest lightweight of all time. If you look at the guys that he beat, becoming a 2-time lightweight champion, and realistically had 2 title defenses. I mean, the weigh-in for the Justin Gaethje fight was so weird. Everybody looks at it as Oliveira weighed in correctly and beat Gaethje, defended his title. Right, who honestly looks at it as, oh, Makhachev and Oliveira fought for a vacant title. Oliveira was the champ in that fight. Islam beat him for the belt. So if he defeats Islam and then defends it one more time, Let's say it's against Dustin Poirier for a rematch. I have to say he's the greatest lightweight ever. The only guy you have to compare him with is Khabib, and his competition level was harder than Khabib's, beating Islam Makhachev, Dustin Poirier twice, Justin Gaethje, Beneil Dariush, Tony Ferguson, and Kevin Lee. That's much more difficult than what Khabib had to do. Now, there is that loss to Islam, and he wasn't as dominant as Khabib was. But the thing is, he finished everyone except Tony Ferguson, and he just did it in a whole different method, right? The way that he fights, it's hard to just come out dominant. You're going to get punched and kicked when you fight like that. So yes, I have to say that Oliveira would be the greatest lightweight of all time if he gets one more title defense after beating Islam. Now for Islam, he needs more, right? He needs more title defenses. Let's say if he gets one more after Oliveira, he actually ties the title defense record, but he's lacking the competition level. Beating Oliveira twice in Volk is amazing, but he needs to beat more top tier guys than just that. If he beats Dustin after, and then he beats Chandler after, now we're talking. Now he actually might be the greatest lightweight ever. And you might be thinking, why is the threshold so much lower than other weight classes? Why do you only have to have like 3 or 4 title defenses to become the greatest lightweight ever and beat like 5 or 6 top contenders? It's because the weight class is so difficult. It's so hard to get 3 title defenses, and it's so hard to beat like 5 top-ranked fighters without losing that much. Everyone is just so good. It's hard to be that dominant. It's hard to stay on top that long. So good question. And then we go to Rashad of War. Do you see a way for Petr Yan to make it back to a title at bantamweight? Meaning, what changes should he make in order to beat the other contenders in the top 5? Yes, he can. It's just the whole waiting for things style. He starts so slow. He has to start faster, and he has to counter all the takedowns. Fighters just seem to spam him with takedowns and overload the data, and he just can't get out of first gear, which means he has to explode more in the first round and take chances. Even if that means that he didn't analyze the data and respond, he has to go for broke sometimes just to get the opponent to respect his power. Because with the way that he fought Merab and Aljamain the second time, these guys didn't really respect him as much. They just went at him, spamming takedowns, and he never did much. It was hard for him to counter because he was just looking to analyze the entire time when there was too many things thrown at him to analyze. So if he does that, I mean, he can be champion. He could beat everybody. Petr Yan is so incredibly talented that most fans thought that this guy might be the best fighter in the whole world. He has to pace himself differently in order to change things up. There's no other way. He has all the technique down. He has all the skills. He's very well-rounded. He can take you down. He can box better than most. He can kick better than most. He counters better than most. He's very fast. He's powerful. He can knock you down with one punch. It's just all about the pacing. That's it. It's actually crazy that pacing alone can change the trajectory of how well you do in fights. Then with the Caleb Smith. How would Oliveira do against the top 15 of welterweight? Love the content. Thank you so much, man. I don't imagine him doing too well outside of the wrestlers. So, top 15, let's go through this really quickly. I think he beats Michel Pereira, but very difficult fight, honestly. I think he beats Jack Della Maddalena, takes him to the ground and submits him. I think he beats Ian Gary, who also doesn't move his head too much, could be open for the takedown, and the power is there as well to hurt Ian Gary. I think he outgrapples Michael Chiesa. I think he outgrapples Neil Magny. I think he takes Lukey to the ground and submits him. I think he outstrikes Sean Brady. I think he loses to Jeff Neal, who proves to be too hard to take to the ground, and the power in the feet is going to be too much for Oliveira's durability. I think he outgrapples Wonderboy, loses to Shavkat, who pretty much can do what Oliveira can do, but with more power and strength. He's not taking out Rakhmonov, and it's going to be hard to outstrike him. But it would be a fun one. That would actually be an entertaining fight. All offense between those two. I think a fight with Gilbert Burns can be a win for him. Gilbert doesn't have the best defense overall, and his striking offense can be somewhat obvious at times. That's almost a 50-50 for me. I can see how both guys win that. But if Gilbert hits Charles once, I mean, that fight could be over. But then again, if Charles hits Burns once, that could be over as well. Both guys don't have the greatest chin. And neither guy are going to take the other to the ground unless Oliveira just welcomes it. So 50-50 for me. I can see how both guys win that. I think Hamza beats Oliveira. Oliveira can't take the fight to the ground. He gets overpowered on the feet. I think Oliveira beats Bilal Muhammad. What does Bilal want to do to him? Does he want to take him to the ground? Is he going to strike with Oliveira, who's going to be going at him so quickly like that? I have to go with Oliveira. Bilal also doesn't have that much power. I think he beats Colby Covington. I think he can outstrike Colby on the feet. He has more power. He's much faster. He has a longer reach. He's more technically sound. And he could try to get the fight to the ground the way RDA did. And if Colby wants to take him to the ground, Colby's going to get submitted. So I actually like Oliveira's chances against Colby Covington. In fact, Charles Oliveira is Colby's toughest fight out of anybody in the lightweight or welterweight division. I think Kamaru Usman beats Oliveira, stuffs the takedowns, and overpowers him with his boxing. And I think Leon Edwards beats Oliveira as well. As long as he can stop the takedowns. If he gets taken to the ground, he's getting submitted. He gives up his back way too often, and that is the wrong guy to do that to. As long as Leon can stop the takedowns and keep it on the feet, he's winning the fight. But as soon as the fight goes to the ground, Oliveira wins. So actually, I'm not too sure about that one. I lean to Leon, but that's an iffy. Then we go to Rencher. If an MMA genie gave you 3 wishes for things you can change about the UFC, what would they be? I think fighters should be making a lot more money. I think every fighter, if I had a genie who could do anything, I would have every fighter make at least $1 million, even the newcomers. I hold these fighters at such high regard. I wish they can all get paid that much. But that's one thing I would do. I would change the scoring system. Judge a fight as a whole. 12-6 elbows are back. Ground and knees are back. More judges, open scoring, all of that would be there. And the third wish, I would bring the 165-pound weight class and add 175 as well.
Then we get to James Warner. What are your top 5 knockouts of all time? Any combat sports? P.S. Love your videos, man. Thank you so much. My top 5 favorite knockouts. Most of them are going to be in MMA. One of them stands out as the Joaquin Buckley spinning back kick knockout. By his opponent grabbing his leg, Joaquin Buckley was able to spin in midair and throw up the back kick to the face. That is something we don't see in the sport. You see it in Taekwondo more. You'll see something like that in Taekwondo when someone throws a cut kick and they'll turn it into a 2-touch. For an example, like Raymond Daniels has knocked someone out with a very similar technique in Glory Kickboxing. But to see in MMA with someone getting their leg caught, it makes it so flashy because he didn't expect it. It looked like Joaquin Buckley was about to get taken to the ground or he wasn't in a good position. But then to turn that into one of the greatest knockouts of all time is crazy. The one that's always going to be in the top of the list is Edson Barboza's knockout against Terry Edom. Wheel kick to the face. You didn't really see that before in the UFC. The impact turned Terry Edom into a statue. And I remember watching it live. It happened in the 3rd round. The fight wasn't the greatest, so it kind of lulled the audience into thinking it was going to be a slower fight, that nothing was going to happen. And wheel kick out of nowhere after Barboza throws that 3-piece combo ending with the leg kick, takes a step back for his range on the wheel kick, throws it out there and knocks him out. That was crazy, man. I still remember exactly where I was when I watched that. That's when you know a knockout is insane, where you remember where you were watching that knockout. Dan Henderson knocking Michael Bisping is iconic. It wasn't super flashy, but as Bisping was moving out to his own left side, Dan Henderson throwing the leg kick that also was used as a step in to intercept Michael Bisping's movement with the right overhand, knocking him out cold, and then the flying forearm to the face. I think actually landed to the neck. That was a bit much. That was crazy. I remember back in the day, so many fans loved that knockout so much because of the Ultimate Fighter. Michael Bisping was annoying Dan Henderson during TUF, and everybody loved Dan Henderson. So to see that knockout, the fans went insane. They were talking about it for such a long time. They never let that knockout loss down for Bisping. I would have to go and say that Conor McGregor's knockout against Jose Aldo, that was the knockout when I watched it live. I just didn't believe it happened. The knockout was so sudden. Everybody thought that it was going to be a close fight. In fact, a lot of people thought that Jose Aldo had a great chance of winning. And Conor was talking about before how he would knock out Aldo, or draw him into dead space and knock him out with the first collision. Everybody thought that he was just talking, that it wouldn't happen that way. And then it happens. But when they both walked out there, you can see Aldo was a bit flustered by all the trash talk and all the mind games. Something that the lower weight classes haven't really seen before. Nobody from lightweight down was playing mind games like Conor McGregor. Most guys back in the day were very clear cut. They're all trying to be professional, all having the same answers for the interviews. And then Conor came into the picture and all the fighters hated him. And he knocks out Jose Aldo with that one left hand. It was like the second strike he hit Aldo with. The first with a side kick to the knee. He moved back for the left hand as Aldo was trying to throw that combo he was throwing at Kenny Florian. So a lot of people like to say Aldo never did that before. Aldo never threw a combo like that before. It was a fluke and all that stuff. I don't know about the whole fluke thing, but Aldo absolutely threw that combo before. He was throwing it against Kenny Florian, who had the same build as Conor McGregor, and also fought bladed, almost like a karate stance. Aldo was getting in on Kenny Florian with that same fake right straight, sometimes even throwing it into a long left hook. He tried it against Conor McGregor, who was fighting very long, and Aldo got knocked out for it. You can't rush in on Conor McGregor open like that. Aldo should have thrown leg kicks from a distance. He should have attempted takedowns, and I think that's where the mind games played with him. It wasn't because, he never threw that combo before. No, it was, he didn't start with a leg kick. He didn't start by shooting at a takedown when his opponent is so much longer than him and fighting from far range. If you want to think, why didn't he do the same thing against Kenny Florian in the beginning? is because Kenny Florian was a grappler, right? Kenny Florian probably wanted to grab the leg kicks. He wanted to get taken to the ground by Aldo. So Aldo boxed with him, and of course did throw leg kicks as well. But the thing with Conor is, the guy wasn't known for his grappling. Even back in that day, everybody thought that Conor has trash grappling. So Aldo taking him to the ground would have been a great thing. And the leg kicks as well. We know that Conor doesn't defend those that well, even if they're coming from the outside. So that knockout was crazy, man. Literally for like hours. It felt like that knockout didn't happen. And you felt so bad for Jose Aldo. He was devastated, and even Conor felt bad for the guy. Even Conor said that he's sorry, which just shows everybody's respect for the legend. I would also have to throw in there Conor's knockout against Eddie Alvarez, the 4-piece nugget combo, beautiful placements of those shots against someone who also got mentally destroyed by Conor McGregor. Alvarez even admitted that he did. His game plan was to kick and wrestle. What'd he do? Box. He boxed with Conor. He did that in the beginning, but quickly went away from it and started to box with Conor for like a round and a half after. And then I would say probably the most special knockout to me is Anderson Silva's knockout against Vitor Belfort. It's the knockout that made me become a hardcore fan. That was the knockout that made me much more interested in the sport. Me and my friends and cousins were all talking about like, yo, Vitor's a dangerous guy for Anderson. I didn't really know Vitor too much. I knew about Anderson Silva. I mean, I was really young. I was a little kid when this happened. He was my favorite fighter back in the day, and seeing what he did against like Forrest Griffin and Chael Sonnen, the James Irvin knockout, watching his highlights, I thought Anderson would beat Vitor. It was actually interesting because everyone was telling me, Vitor is an amazing boxer. Oh, he blitzes you down. And what he did to Vanderlei back in the day is something he could do to Anderson. He has great Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. So I watch a highlight reel of Vitor, and I'm like, wait, there's no way he's going to run into Anderson like that. He's going to get countered and knocked out. So watching the fight, I see them both just standing in front of each other. It wasn't boring to me, because it was like, 3 minutes of nothing happening? Both guys are waiting for that big counter shot. It was more nerve-wracking. It was very suspenseful. We were waiting which fighter is going to explode. Is Anderson going to get impatient, or is Vitor going to get impatient? I already knew there's no way Anderson Silva would get impatient first fighting Vitor Belfort. Vitor would be the one that explodes out first. It happened once where Anderson threw a kick and Vitor tried to counter it, went crazy and got the fight to the ground. Anderson Silva put up the front kick to the face. Back in that day, I did believe Joe Rogan, we never seen a front kick like that before. We never seen a front kick get thrown in the face. Most of it's getting thrown to the body and stuff. So in the moment, it felt like such a special knockout. And it was, to be honest, because there were no front kick knockouts like that. But if you look closely in Anderson's career, he was throwing a lot of front kicks to the face before that. This is the one that finally caught his target clean. So there were some amazing knockouts. If I were to pick my favorite knockout in boxing, it's absolutely, without question, Thomas Hearn's knockout against Roberto Duran. The thing I always loved about that knockout ever since I was a little kid, when he threw his right hand, because the cameras were so bad back in the day, you barely were able to see it. The frame rate was so low, he's throwing the jabs to the body, moving out to his left to create more of an open target for his right hand. And once he throws his right, you see it for like one frame. And that was it. So it looked like the fastest punch you've ever seen. And Roberto Duran went down from that one punch. There were a lot of amazing boxing knockouts. I used to watch like old videos of Rocky Marciano's knockouts, the one he landed on Jersey Joe Walcott, which is one of the most famous knockouts in boxing history. I would actually have to say my second favorite knockout is Jersey Joe Walcott knocking out Ezra Charles. You guys have to watch this. This is a knockout they don't even show anymore because it's so old, but you've never seen anything like it. Jersey Joe is walking forward all casually, arms to his side, strutting at Ezra Charles, who back in the day was one of the best boxers in the world. He's actually historically known as the greatest light heavyweight of all time. He's strutting at him. Ezra Charles, I think, threw a right straight. Man, this is so long ago. I think it was a right straight, and Jersey Joe slipped on the outside of it while he's walking at him, did not slow down, and counters him to the jaw with a left shovel hook. Knocks him out cold. That knockout had the most swagger I've ever seen. I also love Roy Jones Jr.'s knockout against Montel Griffin. So this is after he lost by DQ. He knocks him out in the first round. Specifically, what I liked was the uppercut for the knockdown first. So Roy Jones leaps in from a mile away with a lead left uppercut. He leaps so far with it, and Montel Griffin, what he tries to do to get away is he limbos. He leans all the way back, Matrix style, and I'm telling, like, his back was almost touching the ground. That's how far he was leaning, and he still got cracked to the jaw. That was such a funny knockdown, man. Roy Jones was my favorite boxer. Then it was Thomas Hearns.
Then we'll go to some of the comment questions. We're going to start with Hung Hunter. Hey Weasel, thanks for the great content. If MMA had only one 25-minute round, who would be the champ, top 3 of each division? So for heavyweight, I would say Jon Jones. Top 3 would be tough to say. Cyril Gane, Sergey Pavlovich still, and Stipe, I guess. For light heavyweight, I would say Yuri Prohaska would be champ, and in the top 3 would be Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, and Jan Blachowicz. For the middleweight division, of course, Israel Adesanya. In the top 3 would be Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier, and Marvin Vettori, because that guy would never get knocked out. For the welterweight division, I would say the champion would be Colby Covington, due to how crazy his cardio is. And the top contenders would be Leon Edwards, Hamza Chimaev, and Kamaru Usman. For the lightweight division, I would say the champion would be Islam Makhachev. And the top 3 would be Charles Oliveira, Dustin Poirier, and Justin Gaethje. So in fact, a lot of these don't change too much. For the featherweight division, I would say the champion would absolutely be Alexander Volkanovski. And the top 3 would be Max Holloway, Ilia Topuria, and Arnold Allen. For the bantamweight division, I would actually say Aljamain Sterling has a lot better chance to stay as champ, because if he gets your back, there's no rounds for you to stand up. You're going to be down there for a long time. And I would say the top contenders will be Merab, Henry Cejudo, and Corey Sandhagen. For the flyweight division, I would say the champ would be Brandon Moreno still. The top contenders would be Deiveson Figueiredo, Alexander Pantoja, and Kai Kara France. For the women's bantamweight division, champ would be Pena for sure. Top contenders, Caitlin Vieira, Holly Holm, and Irina Aldana. For the flyweight division, I would say the champ would be Valentina Shevchenko, and the top contenders would be Alexa Grasso, Erin Blanchfield, and Tatiana Suarez. For the strawweight division, I would say the champ would be Zhang Wei Li, and the top 3 would be Carla Esparza, Yang Xiaonan, and Amanda Lemos. Then the last question, we're going to go to Conman McGregor. Who wins these fantasy matchups? Perfect to end on fantasy matchups. Hamzat versus Prime Rockhold. I would go with Hamzat knocking him out on the feet. Probably doesn't want to go to the ground with Rockhold too much. Jeff Neal versus Prime Nick Diaz. I would go with Nick Diaz. I think he would overwhelm Jeff Neal and not allow him to get going because of his offense. Prime McGregor versus Justin Gaethje. I would go with Justin Gaethje. The leg kicks are too much. The counter punches as McGregor reaches in there because of the leg kick damage. Beneil Dariush versus Prime BJ. I'd go with Beneil Dariush. They're completely different in generation. Prime BJ would not even know what to do about calf kicks. Prime Lawler versus Masvidal. Oh, definitely Prime Lawler. Islam versus Leon at 170. I would go with Islam, but very close fight. Prime Tony versus Fiziev, 3 rounds. I'll go with Prime Tony. And that's the end of the episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure to give this a like. Make sure to subscribe. Really good questions. I'm going to get the next episode out next week. And I am looking to do some more content. Maybe put it on Patreon. Maybe put it as a member. But I haven't done it yet. But I will announce once I do so. And I'll see you guys in the next video.